Welcome back, everybody. Monday. Friday is over and Monday has started. So we're going to be looking in Chapter 9, and that is managing compensation programs. Remember last week, actually on Friday, we were talking about benefits, fringe benefits, compensation packages, things of that nature. This kind of takes you a little further into or digs a little deeper into that. We talked about hourly wages, salaried employees, and then, of course, the compensation package that may make up your pay. Your pay may not be just the monies that you're making for the work you're doing. It may also be a compensation package where it includes fringe benefits, uniforms, paid time off, paid vacations, paid sick leave, insurance, things of that nature. So this is really diving more into that, and it's going to complement Chapter 10, which will finish up this book, where you're looking at how to handle employees, retaining them, and then, of course, releasing them, letting them go. Give them evil eyes, Latasha. Oh, I caught that. We got to love it. And there we talked about body language, right? You got to love it. All right, so let's look at some of the, an overview of the compensation challenges, okay? Compensation, like we've talked before, that is all of the financial or money or non-financial or non-money payments and rewards. Now, see, you got to think of that term, rewards. Whatever benefit, if you get, what am I thinking of? Not compensation, that's at the top of my head. But what is it when you get a percentage of, dadgummit, you get a percentage of what you sell or something like that? Commission. Okay, that's the word I'm looking for, commission. All of this rolls in together, okay? So let's take a look there. They've got 8 hours times 10 hours is $80. How many of you make, and don't raise your hand, but think about it. If you're making $10 or less an hour and minimum wage, that is a job, right? You're looking to make more money than that, or to be a salary, or to have that compensation package. But when you look at that 8 hours times $10 per hour, $80, you've got to think that is your gross pay, okay? So your gross pay, most of us have seen pay stubs. We get paychecks. We know gross pay is the amount before what? What comes out of your gross pay? Turn your mics on to talk to me.
Taxes.
Taxes. What else? Yes, insurance. Everything, right? What, Josh?
Uncle Sam taking his cut with the Medicare or Medicaid as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, it really is kind of sad if you only focus on your gross pay and then you get that paycheck and you're like, dang, I worked all them hours and this is what I get. If you roll it around, sometimes it almost can be next to nothing. But in addition to your gross pay comes your compensation, which is equivalent to your benefits. I've said this, but I'm going to read what the book has so that you can highlight it there in the middle. Benefits include health care, dental, vision, vacation, sick, retirement, contributions that are either solely paid by your employer or partially paid. How many of you have a insurance program where you have to contribute half and your employer contributes half? Do any of y'all have insurance that way? A lot of companies do that now. They don't pay solely for your entire insurance, or they don't even offer. I know in the construction realm, it's hard to find a company that even offers insurance to the employees. And if you're self-employed, guess what? That's a whole nother ball game, because you're responsible for insuring yourself, and that gets pricey. I know before our company had insurance or group insurance, You know, my husband and I was paying $1,200 a month for a family plan, me, him, and one child. It's ridiculous. So a lot of people search for jobs not solely on the gross pay they're going to get, but the fact that do they have insurance? Because an individual almost can't afford insurance, right? It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Now, if you roll on down there, managers are caught between the employees and the owner. He or she wants the employees, especially the good ones, to be well paid. And they work hard to train and manage and build a team. And they don't want to lose them to other businesses that potentially pay more. But again, as an employee, I'm going to tell you, you need to look at not just your gross pay, but potentially the compensation package that you're getting. A bonus, how many of you get bonuses? Who knows what a bonus is? Anybody? Go ahead, Therese. What's a bonus?
Well, it's just extra pay, a set amount, that's paid to you based on whatever requirements. I know in my past job, you would get a bonus if your performance appraisal was in a certain category. So if you had, excellent, you would get a certain amount on your check.
Absolutely. So a bonus is any additional compensation that is paid whenever some sort of goal is met. Okay. Now, we talk about Christmas bonuses and all this kind of stuff. That could basically be the same thing. We just roll it into like a Christmas. We say, hey, end of year, we're going to give you a Christmas bonus based on, whatever. It can be a percentage or something like that. So let's take a closer look. Again, I'm going to not get too deep into this because I feel like it's going to become repetitive, but let's look at compensation. Labor costs in a restaurant, we already know that. Labor costs are one of the restaurant's operations two prime cost, okay? Two prime cost. So when you look at that, the largest category of cost, all right? So your prime cost is your largest category of cost, all right? Who can tell me what the two prime costs are? And if you don't know this, you need to make a note of this right now to the right-hand side of the margin. Who can tell me what the two prime costs are? We already know one, labor. What's the other one, Patrice?
Product purchases.
Product. So you got to think, product and labor are your two prime costs. They make up 60%, okay? 60% is what they usually run of your budget, all right? So keep that in mind. And it says right there, if you want to highlight, labor costs of one of the restaurants and food service operations, two prime costs, the largest categories of cost. The other prime cost is product purchases. Labor costs must carefully be evaluated and managed because it is one of the larger ones. You can't just be throwing money away in these two areas, basically is what they're saying. So your labor cost makes up wages, salaries, and benefits. You can go into reading. I'm not going to read all of this, wages, tips, and salaries. Usually entry-level positions are paid a wage. That means they're paid by the hour. Managers or leaders, they a lot of times are paid salary, which is meaning they're getting a set amount no matter, there's usually a stipulation of how many hours per week they have to work, but they can work more or less, okay? So keep that in mind. Also, skill level. You're not going to walk into a job with no skills and expect to make a high-end salary, right? So usually based on skill level, knowledge, you're in school to elevate your knowledge, which hopefully will land you a management position, but experience is also going to play into that. Your skill level, that's going to play into that. So we're going to move on. Do highlight down there exempt employee. I'm on page 231. Make sure you look at that. That's one who does not qualify for overtime pay. due to the Fair Labor Standard Act. So make sure you note that. Withholding tax, again, we already covered that. Josh nailed it really pinpoint. It's what the government takes out of your check, okay? That's withholding taxes. Now, benefits. Benefits can be your unemployment insurance, Social Security, Medicare, workman's compensation. We think of those as government taking those, but technically those are benefits. Those are things that are going to come back to you in the end. Have you ever who's thought about that? We look at them as, oh, government's taking those out of my check. Well, yeah, they are, but they're technically not withholding taxes. That's going to be your FICA, your federal income tax, your state income tax. Those are withholding taxes, whereas your unemployment, your Social Security, Medicare, and workman's comp, those come out of your check, but they actually come back to you. So think about that. And remember, there's a difference between those. Those are not withholding. Those are benefits, okay? And you can look at this big old examples of voluntary benefits. These are things that you would voluntarily have if your organization offers it, taken out of your check. And don't forget garnishment, okay? If you're, God forbid, you don't pay your child support, they're going to find you. They're going to garnish your wages. If you have back taxes, if you're one of those that you are evading taxes, they're going to catch up with you. And eventually, they'll take it out of your check one way or the other, either legally or whatever. Either through a legal process or through garnishment, which is a legal process. One thing as a manager or potential owner, because again, this book is talking to you as if you are an owner or going to manage an establishment. Better benefits attract better employees. Do y'all agree with that statement? I agree. I mean, that's what we look for, right? When we're looking for employment, we're looking for which company is going to give me more? Who's going to value me enough to invest in me with better benefits? That's things that we look for. All right. The federal and state compensation laws, you can read through those. I want to point out a couple of things. Under federal compensation, again, minimum wage. What
Hey, yo, did she freeze?
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
Good morning, y'all. Good morning. Good morning. I don't know what's going on, but what's up? Hey, good morning.
We being recorded, but Chef froze.
Okay.
So you gotta love Wi-Fi, right? Y'all
That's
totally
true.
lost me and didn't even know it. Or did y'all know it?
Yeah,
Good morning, Chris.
And you froze.
true.
Okay, yeah. So again, somebody Google, tell me, what is the minimum wage for 2020?
Minimum wage is $7.25 an hour.
That's ridiculous.
$7.25. $7.25. Isn't that crazy? Can y'all live on $7.25? You can't.
Good morning,
So-
Chef. I'm on.
Good morning, Krista. I saw you. Thank you. I'm marking you here. So yeah. So we go to school to make more than that, right? Or we need to at least be setting ourselves up for that career, not that job, because $7.25, you can't live on that. But now $7.25, the federal government set that standard, and they have increases. I can remember when it was minimum wage was like $3-4. So they definitely have come up, but the cost of living has increased as well. So just keep that in mind. The Fair Labor Standard Act, the federal law states that minimum wage. Okay, so keep that in mind. Make sure you're highlighting that. They consider overtime rate premium. That is, what did I tell y'all before? What is overtime? Somebody tell me what overtime is.
Over 40 hours.
Over 40 hours
a week.
You get what?
Anything over 40 hours a week?
Yep.
Or is it 80 for the pay period?
No, well, 40 for a week, 7-day period, 40 for a week. But what do you get? What's your increase?
And it's the time and a half.
Time and a half.
Time and a half. That is absolutely correct. So keep that in mind. And again, I want you to highlight there at the bottom, Equal Pay Act. That just means men and women, guess what? Men, you ain't getting paid. If I'm doing your job and you're doing my job, you can't get paid more than me just because you're a man, right? That's what equal pay rights means. All right, so make sure you know that. State compensation laws, those vary per state. Some states have a higher minimum wage than the federal law. They can do that. Some states require employers to pay more. So if the state has a higher and the federal has a lower, as the owner or employer, which one do you need to choose? Which one do you have to pay your employees? Anybody know?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tree.
Latasha had a hand up.
Go ahead, Latasha. I didn't catch that.
Sorry. The one that's higher?
That's right. So if you live in a state where your state is higher than your federal, you're required to give them the highest benefit. Isn't that a good thing? All right, factors affecting your compensation. You can look at that. Obviously, revenue levels. You can't pay your employees what you don't have in sales, right? That would be a bad thing. And not to mention, you'd probably quit. If I gave an employee a bouncing rubber check, you'd be done quit and suing me, right? Immediately. Payroll standards, local and regional pay levels, competitive pay levels. You're not going to stay at my establishment if I'm paying you less than what my competitor's paying their employees. You're going to be going over to my competitor, right? Of course, we just talked about state and federal minimum wage laws, service and skills required. Don't be expecting to get paid for a skill you don't have. And I probably said this before, but I'm going to say it again. Know what you know what you don't know, and if you don't know, be willing to learn it. The more you know, the more valuable you are. Cross-train. Oh my gosh, if you are in the restaurant industry, be willing to learn different jobs, step into different roles. Guess what? That makes you more valuable. And the more valuable you are, the higher potential pay that you will receive. Collective bargaining agreements. Does anybody know what that is? Probably not. That is your unions, okay? Unions have collective, and you can put a note there, collective bargaining agreements. Those are your unions. And then controllable costs. Obviously, we can control cost by controlling our food cost, controlling waste, controlling labor costs by, monitoring and managing our labor and where they're at. The revenue levels, you can look at the factors that affect pay ranges. Those are some of the things we just listed. Payroll standards, there really isn't much in there that I want to point out other than I want you to go through these because these are things that can affect your pay ranges. That's going to be your payroll standards, again, local and regional pay levels, competitive pay levels, the things we just went down, knowledge and skills, collective bargaining, other factors, and then operations need specific pay plans. I want you to look at that in particular on 239. Operations need specific pay plans. Every pay plan is not a one size fits all. So you need to look at your establishment and develop your pay scale ranges. You've got to develop that. You can't just say this pay range or this pay schedule fits my establishment. So make sure you know and develop a plan. Like anything else, you've got to develop a plan up front. You can't just wing it. Well, you can, but you're not going to be successful, okay? All right, we're going to roll on over policies and procedures. You've got to, there's a process for controlling compensation policies, and you can look at that. First, you've got to analyze your factors, and that's look at what is affecting your compensation. Then you establish standards and procedures, all right? Those are your SOPs, standard operating procedures, all right? Based on what you found out, based on what's affecting your compensation. And then you're going to train your staff. We've talked earlier, train, communicate. You've got to have that. Monitor employee performance. How are some ways we can monitor employee performance? Who can give me some ways to monitor employee performance? We've discussed a few last week. Yes, Josh.
Annual performance evaluations.
Performance reviews, absolutely. What are some other ways we can monitor performance? What about kitchen walkthroughs? Establishment walkthroughs? What about secret shoppers? Surveys? There's a host of ways we can monitor our employee performance. And then take appropriate action. Like any good plan, you got to figure out what it is. You got to set some sort of goal, right? Then you're going to monitor it. Then you're going to take action to correct it. And then you're going to, again, monitor the factors to keep up with date with compensation issues. You're going to keep monitoring that. And again, go through this whole process if you see something else affecting your compensation, okay? And that's all of 241 is going through that. You can look at some of the issues with compensation policies, direct deposit, garnishment, we already talked about that, on-call pay, pay increases, promotions, all of those things. I'm not going to go down all of those, but those are where there could be issues that are affecting your management of compensation increases. Who knows what a merit pay plan is? It's in your book. So if you're not looking in your book, you might be a little lost. Robert Swanson, can you tell me what a merit pay plan is?
What page y'all on?
I'm on 242. Right there towards the bottom. Read that first paragraph for me. Right under management of compensation increases. Did you find it?
Yeah. You said what page?
242. First paragraph under management of compensation issues.
It looked like it's just like incentive-based, like way to pay employees. They like start doing good and stuff like that.
Yep. So basically, these are programs that offer incentives for employees to improve performance and increase productivity. So merit pay is when you're getting paid for a job well done. Bottom line, a job well done, okay? Merit pay plans need guidelines and policies to help make sure that they're fair. It could easily go wrong if you're giving merit pay increases, if you will, for a job well done to one employee, and yet another employee feels like it's being handed out or awarded unfairly, right? Could y'all see that going wrong? I could see me saying, Patrice, job well done. and I'm giving you 20 extra, just 3 points on your grade for a job well done. And Josh, who feels like he's put in the same amount of effort, the same amount of work, but yet I'm not recognizing him. So you need to make sure there are policies in place and there's a way that you can justify these increases. Does that make sense? It needs to be fair across the board. You need to have a policy to make it fair so that one person isn't being rewarded unjustly or another person's being overlooked unfairly. All right. So on page 243, you can look there. There are 4 main factors that involve merit pay: job performance, accomplishments, current pay rate, contribution to business goals. So I'm not going to go into each and every one of those. The only one I do want to go into is performance factors. These are ways that most employees, if they're going to give you a merit pay, all right, this is what they're going to look at. Attendance. I look at that in your schoolwork, right? If you've made an effort to attend this virtual class every day, guess what? I'm paying attention. I'm noting that. If you're making an effort to get all your assignments in, guess what? I'm paying attention to that. If you've got a little, I don't know if you guys know, I'm going to try not to show names, but I use this little form here, okay? It tells me every day, it's a form I created, every day who's checked in with me during class. I've got little circles for every day you haven't turned in an assignment when I go to look because I'm behind you guys. What you're supposed to turn in today, I'm not looking at today. What you were supposed to turn in Friday, I'm looking at that today. So, you know, little bubbles, if it's not there, you get a circle. If it's late, that circle stays, but then you get credit for that being late, and then you get a reduction of 10 points. That keeps me valid. So what I'm trying to say is when you come back to me and you say, oh, Chef, why did I get, it's because it's all right here. I can say, hey, you didn't turn this in. So attendance, behavior, all right? Customer service, team player outlook. Are you participating in these classes? Or are you just on here, you've got everything muted and you just look like you're on here. You're not really involved in what's going on. Uniform cleanliness. That's a big part in the restaurant industry. You need to come to work looking like you didn't just drag your uniform out of a trash can. If you were going into the hospital, right, Latasha? If you were going to a hospital and you look like that, you'd be nervous of that person touching you, right? Right, Latasha? We'd be nervous.
Right.
Yeah, so you wouldn't want somebody looking filthy, unorganized, and looks like they ain't slept in a week and smelling like they ain't showered in a month touching your food, would you? I wouldn't, so I know y'all wouldn't. So you got to think about those. Those are performance factors that may, all right, be used to evaluate merit pays. So keep that in mind. We're going to go ahead and flip on over because I think y'all can look at that, pulling it all together. They give you a sample of a performance score sheet. The only thing I want to point out there on page 246, payroll information is private. Keep that in mind. I'm very careful not to share your guys' information with other students. And pays the same thing. People here don't know what I make. All right, I don't know what they make. That's not a topic of conversation. It's nobody's business. What I'm being paid in my position may be different than a person in my position based on our skill level, our education, and our experience, right? So you can't start comparing pay levels. It's different for everybody, and it's private for everybody. You need to remember that. Appraisals and compensation, anniversary dates. I know in the construction realm, because that's what I have as a CFO, that's where I have my experience at in management and finances. Typically, our employees didn't earn a week vacay. Now, keep in mind, this is a private family-owned company. They didn't earn 1 week paid vacation until they had 1 year of employment with us. That's going to be different across the board for different companies and establishments, okay? So usually anniversary dates are big dates. That's when you're going to get appraisal performances, you're going to get maybe increase in living and all that kind of stuff. So you've got to know that. You've got to know employees' anniversary dates, okay? That's the date that they began working full-time with the establishment. A lot of companies get around some of the benefits that they need to pay in a certain way. Does anybody know how they get around that? I'm thinking of some of the local businesses in particular. What are some avenues that a business can take to reduce or not have to pay some of these employee benefits? Go ahead, Patrice.
Sometimes they put you as part-time, so
Exactly.
you don't qualify for it based on your hours.
That's kind of crappy, isn't it? Unless you're like me and you want to work part-time. Yeah, I'm thinking of some of the local hobby shops. I won't call names, but they actually would only have 1 or 2 full-time employees, and those were the managers. Everybody else was seasonal or part-time. Bottom line, saves the company money. They don't have to do, they still have to do workman's comp because they're employees, but they don't have to pay any health benefits or any paid vacations or any, sick leave or anything like that. So keep that in mind. Payroll services and record keeping, obviously you can outsource. That means you're going to hire your bookkeeper or your CPA. That's what outsourcing means. Or you can do it within your establishment. There are some general record keeping tasks. I'm not going to go into all of those, but I would encourage you, if you're going to own and operate a business, you want to look at that. All right, let's go ahead. We're going to breeze through chapter 10. We've only been on here a couple of minutes. I'm going to make it very quick so that we can close out this book. Chapter 10 it's actually hiring an employee and then firing an employee, okay? When you hear terminations, that means you are terminated. Prayerfully, you are terminating your employment with your employer on a good standing. They'll consider you as a rehire down the road. You really don't ever, here's my mom, grandma advice. Never quit a job unless you have another job to go to, and never just walk out and quit. Turn in a notice. You want to leave that position in good standing, and here's why. Number one, if you ever have to go back, that door is potentially open. But most importantly, if your future employer, and I've done it, contacts your past employer, you don't want them saying anything negative, right? It could potentially hinder you from getting your dream job. If they go to your references, they go to your past employers, hey, what kind of employee was he? Oh, they just walked out in the middle of the shift, left us high and dry, right? That don't sound good. And again, I know it's easier looking from your guys' perspective as employees, saying, well, they did this wrong, they did that wrong, whatever. But as an owner of an establishment, you've got to think of it from a management perspective, okay? All right, so just pointing that out. Select the right employees. How many of your establishments select the right employees? Or do they practice that warm body syndrome? Somebody give me an example. Anybody? Can somebody tell me what warm body syndrome is? Nobody, huh? Or am I? Oh, I'm not froze. Y'all moving.
Is it when they just hire somebody that's not really experienced for the job, they're just putting a body in the position?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And a lot of times employers do that, right? We talked about that. They just want somebody to fill the position. Don't care if they're knowledgeable. Don't care if they can do the job. Don't really care if they fit. They just want somebody in that position. That can be That can be a good thing, but it can be a very wrong thing. It can totally disrupt the kitchen. You put somebody in the wrong place, okay? So make sure you highlight that. Make sure you know what warm body syndrome is, all right? And again, you want to train correctly. You want to supervise effectively. You want to be an employer of choice. What are some things we can do to be an employer of choice? Y'all throw some stuff out to me. What can we do to be an employer of choice if we own an establishment? Go ahead. Go ahead, Latasha.
Sign on bonuses.
Right? What else, Patrice?
Creating a good work culture or work environment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you got to think about that. We've all been employees, right? So if your future is to own and operate a business, what can you do to be a desirable employer? That employees want to come work for you. They want to stay with you. They want to grow with you. They want to invest their hard-earned time in your business, which in the end is going to increase your revenue and your dollar sales. So you need to think about that, all right? So think about how you can be an employer of choice. Now.
Yes, Jeff, I have a question.
Yes.
All right, it's RJ.
Hi, RJ. I was wondering where you were.
You know I'm gonna be here. My question is, do you have to be careful when people are trying to get off their main? Well, let me rephrase that. How can you be careful when someone is trying to get their business off your business?
We call those coattail riders.
Yes.
People that want to, they want to follow your coattails. You have to be careful with that. It happens, trust me, especially in the food industry. And I can think of caterers or private people in particular that have these grand business ideas, even with you guys, okay? Be careful what you share as far as your dream job, because before you know it, next thing you know, somebody else is going to open it before you even get a chance. So you do have to, there's a fine line between being careful with how much you share and how much you involve others in your business. Now, I'll give you an example. If you own and operate a business and you are the one tending and managing that business, then you're the one most knowledgeable in your business, correct? Everybody agree with that? Shake your head, thumbs up, something. Now, you delegate all of that to someone else. And that someone else decides they're going to take your concept and they're going to run with it and become your competitor. It's a fine line between the two. And I don't know if that really answered your question, because I don't know if there's a real answer other than know your business and be careful who you delegate what to. Make sure they're committed to your business, not to just gaining information. And again, there's nothing wrong with sharing your expertise. There's nothing wrong with, teaching others. It's like I have recipes and I share recipes that I have tweaked and done a million times and whatever. But guess what? I also know there's things that I do that they're not going to be able to do, and I'm going to be one step ahead of them. In other words, I'm going to be that one level of education ahead, one level of this ahead. Does that make sense?
It does, Chef. I just had to ask the question.
It's a great question, because all of you in particular, you're rolling around with this, and I don't want to call it a grandeur business mentality, but all of you, most of us, come into culinary school and we have some sort of goal or vision. We're not here just because we want to be here. We're here because we either have a passion for others, so we're getting in the hospitality industry, or we have a passion for food. And we have some idea of what we want to do with it. And how many of y'all told me you wanted to own or operate a business? That's what you're in school for. You're wanting to do something with that. So with that, I'm going to encourage you, kind of be a little reserved with your ideas. Now, as you're developing this dream business for these projects, that's not your ultimate thing, right? And you're going to improve on that. You're going to put a lot of effort into this, but you're going to improve on that. But you still need to be a little reserved. You don't want someone jumping on your bandwagon and rolling off with it, if that makes sense. All right. All right. So we digressed a little bit, but that was a good question, RJ. Now let's talk about discipline procedures, because just like we need to have policies in place for hiring, policies in place for everything in business, as y'all have figured that out, you have to have good discipline procedures. When you have these, and you can look there on page 260, there's several objectives with those. One is preventing misunderstandings. You know what's expected of you, and you know, and I know what to expect from you. All right, there's no misunderstanding. You have job duties in place. Either you're doing them or you're not. You know standard operating procedures. You know code of conduct. You know ethics. Either you're doing it or not. Either you're following the food cost procedures, eliminating waste, or you're not. I can call you out on that at any time, and I can say, hey, this is what you're doing. You got to make sure that you can always provide, okay, always provide evidence. Don't just accuse an employee. You must have evidence, obviously. Reduce the number of situations. If you're having a reoccurrence, then if you have these procedures in place, then you can reduce those. And then ensure that you document. You should always document. I know in past experience, we had 3 strikes, you're out. You got a verbal warning, you got a written warning, third time, you got excused. So, you know, your establishment or you are going to develop these policies or these disciplines. And it can, there you go, oral warning. And it gives you on the bottom of 261, things that you should discuss in an oral warning, right? Things that you should discuss. Make sure you touch on that. Make sure the employee knows exactly what that is. Make sure that your employee is involved in helping to resolve the problem, okay? The actions, the timetable, the notice of the disciplinary action. Make sure all that happens. All right. Now, they give you a discipline report there, and I'm not going to go over that, but they tell you at the bottom of that what should be on a disciplinary report. That's one reason I love these books. If you get ready to start up your business, they give you sample forms to go by. All you got to do is modify them and tweak them to your own, okay? Written warnings, they tell you what needs to be on written warnings. And then, of course, if you choose to give them a probation period means, hey, either you shape up within 30 days or within a week or within whatever the time frame, or you're out. That's a probation period. Improvement timelines, again, I feel like that's to me, that's part of probation. However, they classify it different, so you can read those. And then you got to be consistent in your actions. You can't have an action for this employee and not have an action for this employee, right? If I'm going to call Latasha down for one thing, I need to make sure I'm calling everybody down for that thing, right? Not saying, yeah, right, go ahead, Latasha, give it to us. I heard your mouth going.
I just said absolutely.
Yeah, you can't, I mean, at any job, you can't get on to one employee for doing something. And not, we all have kids. Guess what? If I tell one kid to stay out of the snack cabinet, that means all them kids better stay out of that snack cabinet, right? Come on. You can't treat anybody differently. It has to be fair across the board. And then when you get ready to terminate, obviously there are impacts on termination, right? If you fire somebody, you got to have somebody else in that place. All right? That can affect your bottom line. If you fire them or if they quit or walk out, that's going to affect you. But hear me, guys, hear me. Most employers, they've got a stack of resumes. So don't think, unless you have set yourself up where you're one of them employees that is considered a key employee, they think they can't operate without you. They can. So, just remember that. There's always stacks of resumes. So while you may be a key employee and you want to set yourself up as a key employee, remember everybody's replaceable. So don't become cocky, arrogant. I know some people that can be that way. They think they can get away with everything, and technically they shouldn't. They shouldn't get away with any more than any other employee, okay? Voluntary termination.
I have a question, Chef.
Huh?
I have a question for you.
Yes.
So how long did it take for you to become a chef after you graduated from the after you got your degree? I'll put it like that.
Okay. Well, here's my role. I've been in the food industry since 2010. Okay. I initially started out as a Wilton Method instructor. I did that until 2016. Shortly after that, I did a Scoffier and earned my certificate in baking and pastry art. After that, I've owned and operated a cottage food establishment since 2012. I was the first cottage food establishment in Columbia County. So technically, if you Google the title chef, it's a person in a place of authority, not necessarily hinged on education, but in a place of authority, okay? So with that being said, did I ever feel like a chef? Not really. And honestly, I'm still humbled by that title because I didn't graduate with my culinary degree, my associate degree, until December this past year. So the term chef from you guys is growing on me. Though I've earned the title and I've held places of authority, I don't know if one really, if you're a truly humble person, and this is just in my opinion, if you're a truly humble person, it takes you a while to get used to that title chef. So I don't know. To point blank answer your question, I've been in the industry since 2010, but I'm still getting used to the title chef. Okay.
Okay. You inspire me, Chef. You inspire me.
So I'm just one of those. I'm humbled by the fact I know what I know what I don't know, and I'm always learning. I'm already setting myself up for my goal as an educator. I want to achieve my CPC, which is my Certified Pastry Chef title through American Culinary Federation. And I want to go on and get my bachelor degree. But you got to remember, I'm on the older scheme of education. So I'm going to tell all of you, you're never too old and it's never too late. Okay? So anyway, I had to get done playing CFO before I could follow my passion. So any other questions about me?
Thanks, Chef.
Okay. All right. So Anyway, and my hubby's at home retired, and I like coming to work. Get away from him, right? All right, so voluntary, we know what that means. That means you resigned, you quit, you walked out, whatever. You were voluntarily terminated. You weren't fired. You voluntarily left. All right. Involuntary, that means you got fired, right? They told you, go home, don't come back. We don't want no more of you, basically. That's involuntary. Or involuntary, honestly, could mean you were laid off, right? It could mean you were laid off. And that would be at no fault of your own. Common causes, obviously behavior. You notice that's at the top of the list, right? We all would agree. If you're not a good employee, you're going to be fired, right? And it's because of your behavior or lack of, whichever. Insubordination. Who knows what insubordination is? I know you military folks do. Somebody tell me what insubordination is. Anybody?
That's like just like kind of not following procedures or the rules or something like that.
Exactly.
Yes.
You don't want to follow instructions. Absolutely. That's insubordination. Theft, walk out with my $100 sirloin, beef tenderloin, whatever, and see if I don't fire you, right? And trust me, that happens. Alcohol or drugs. Let me tell you, if something ever happened on our job sites, first thing we did was send them to be drug tested. Because guess what? That's a fireable offense. Show up on the job drunk. That's a fireable offense. Inappropriate conduct. Sexual harassment. That's fireable. Anything that's harmful to the company's image on or off the job. How many of you Facebook? I'm going to throw that out there. How many of you Facebook? Just get everybody, raise your hand on here. Hit the hand button if you Facebook. Yep. There's 2 of you, 3 of you. How many of y'all? 4 of you. How many of y'all worry about what you're putting on your Facebook? You know, in today's times, and I've done it, employers will look at your Facebook page to determine if you are an adequate employee or a representation of their establishment or organization. So think about that next time you're putting that post of you hanging out with your bros, with your brewskis, half dressed and slapping around drunk. All right? Just saying. We all have a private life. Been there, done that, and ain't saying I don't do it. But I'm telling you, in today's society, in the social world, it can affect your job, or it can be a hindrance to you getting that dream position. So keep that in mind. And look, employers don't want that representing them, right? All right. So termination process, you can read through that. Exit interviews are very important. Make sure everybody knows why they're being laid off, fired, released, and make sure you have documentation of that, okay? Make sure you have documentation, and you can read how to ask open-ended questions, closed-ended, multiple choice, that sort of thing. They even give you a separation checklist there. You can go through that, and they give you a sample of a separation notice, separation checklist, and let's roll on over to unemployment compensation. The one thing I want to point out here, benefits are based on a percentage of your earnings over a 52-week time frame. So remember, a lot of us are getting unemployment right now with an additional $600 attached to that. Well, you know what? That can't last forever. So if you're unemployed right now, you're going to be in the market looking for a job. But we're thankful, right, that we have unemployment compensation, that if we do get hit with something like what's going on right now with this COVID-19, that there are funds that are put aside. Now, remember, your unemployment, there's something you need to think about, and you may know or don't know. You pay part of your unemployment tax, all right, into your unemployment, and then also your company pays part of that. So keep that in mind next time you look at your pay stub. All right, and you can read through benefits are usually paid no more than 26 weeks. Recipients
Chef, I have a question.
Yes.
You just hit the note though. As far as like the unemployment, is
Yes.
that on the business that you pay the unemployment? As far as I know, they pay. I know you go to the office and you had to pay apply for it, but does it affect the business as well?
It does. We actually, behind the scenes, y'all may not know this. When somebody goes down and files for unemployment, the first thing that the company gets, and it doesn't matter, every company, every legal company in business, all right, pays unemployment tax on behalf of, and it's based on the payroll itself, all right? So we have to, it's equal. You're paying part, we're paying part. And then when somebody goes and files, we get a letter, all right? And we have to fill that out as to why you were released or laid off or whatever. Because guess what? If you're fired from a job, you can't get unemployment. And if you look there, recipients must be unemployed through no fault of their own, all right? So if you're fired from a job, you can't get unemployment. That's on you. You can't just fire. Now, if you're laid off, if you turn in an equitable notice and you terminate your employment legally and respectfully, then you're entitled to unemployment. But yes, to answer your question, we get a form, we fill it out to legitimize your request, and then your unemployment will begin. And then the unemployment office, Department of Labor, takes care of that. Okay, does that answer your question?
It does a little bit. Actually, it was great. And when you open up a business, is that like a separate budget that you have to put in?
It's going to be under your payroll. You're actually going to have a line item. So in my accounting software, I Solar Electric, which was the name of my husband's company before we closed it. I used QuickBooks, and in my payroll accounting software, we had separate line items. So from the employee's paycheck, there was an unemployment line where it withdrew from your gross pay the unemployment tax, but then also on the company side of that, there was an employee compensation. So when I paid payroll taxes, I paid into your portion from your pay and our portion from the company side into that unemployment account. And that money is there for when employees go and file unemployment and they are approved for unemployment, then that money is withdrawn from that account. And there is a percentage set up for that. Does that make that a little clearer?
Yes, Chef. No more questions.
All right, moving on. So anyway, you can look into that. And again, guess what? That's why I thought let's do 9 and 10. We have completed our book. Whoop, whoop. Everybody do a little happy dance. Whoop, 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 whoop. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and go over quiz 2 real quick. Make sure you get your pen and paper out. And everybody wave bye for the last time on our virtual class. All right, I'm going to hang up from everybody. Y'all have a bye. I'm going to say bye to all you